Satellite.
Oh, satellite.
Yeah.
And they won't get through.
Yeah.
So it just wipes them out for about a month. And potentially, I suppose, there's no reason why, if you happen to have a really big storm on the sun, which they're predicting might happen, it could essentially do pretty much the same thing too.
So when is this next cycle of
212 is when we get supposed to be about the maximum, or we're going into the maximum.
maximum again?
2012, you know.
Which you guys were there in another high cycle.
Right.
Okay. Oh, look at there! You got an igloo.
Yeah, what we. That was partly for fun, but it was partly because one of the things we were doing was, since we didn't have GPS, we did sightings on the stars to know where we were. And we built that around there. They first built it up just and then looking out, and then they decided they'd go ahead and put a stop on it. But they set make the sightings on the stars from in there.
So you could pretty much do that 24 hours a day in the winter.
In the winter, yeah. Yeah.
How was morale in wintertime when there was no sun for months? Was there any cabin fever, or did you have
very little
buildings
very little? What was interesting was, they were supposed to give us a psychological test before we went up the first time.
Sure.
They didn't.
Oh, they didn't?
They didn't have time.
Oh. Sure.
So we went up there, and they decided, well, since you haven't had the test, we'll give it to you the second time. So I'm going in here to this psychologist, and he says, well, what if you found out your buddy was trying to get in bed with you? And I said, well, we didn't have any trouble with that before. He said, you mean you've been up there already? And I said, yeah. We didn't have any problems. He said, well, forget it. Get out of here.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me you failed the second time. No. They'd tell you, well, you can't go.
No,
he's
asking all these questions, and I said, geez, I've been there. We didn't have any problems. No, these were, we had good guys and didn't have any problem. Now, I don't know what the military did, but I never heard any problems at all. I would say morale was better in the summertime because we were out doing a lot of things and checking it up a lot more.
Yeah. Because the sun's up all the time.
Right. But we didn't have any time. We were pretty busy. I mean, we worked about 18 hours a day generally.
Really?
Yeah, because we had to put a radio sign up every 12 hours, and then we had to work up the data on the winds and everything and send that in. And so time we got everything done that we were doing, why, we didn't have a whole lot of time except, go to sleep, get up, and work some more. And then some of the other pictures show you we had to, we would go out to the old pressure ridges. Those were the ones that were kind of worn down, and we'd break up the ice there, but all the salt had drained out of those, so that made good water. So when we brought that in, put it on the stoves, and let it melt, that was our drinking water.
Oh, from the ice flow, not from the snow.
Right.
So that'd be old ice.
Old ice.
Yeah.
Where the salt had drained out.
So the snow, does it have salt there?
Well, yeah, it's not reliable because you never know when you're going to have enough snow, and ice.
So you had a road grader. Did you have like a Jeep or something to drive around in?
Yeah.
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 So your ice chunk was how big?
Oh, wait,
6 miles or?
Oh, that was across. It was about 5 miles across. Yeah.
Right.
Diameter. Pretty much circular, but about 5 miles.
So did you have like a road all the way around the outside of the?
No.
Or you just drove across?
We just drive out and you can see some mounds. You know, might be as high as this desk, and you know these are old pieces of ice that's been out there for a long time, and we go with road grader or blade and hit them and knock them over and fill up a cart and drag them back in and break up the ice and put it in these things, let it melt, and it was good water.
Nobody was ever concerned about falling through?
Not 8 foot thick.
Oh.
8 foot thick.
Oh, okay. But it did crack at some point in time. You had to move the camp.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was in the next spring. We were sitting there, and all of a sudden we felt this vibration, which was unusual. And so right away we went out and looked around and saw like fog coming off. Oh, that's fresh water there. And went down there and we found out that in fact it had cracked so that the mess hall was on one side and we were on the other side. That's bad news.
Oh, it was right in the middle of camp, not
right.
Out on the edge or anything.
Right. And so we decided, okay, it's time to get us. There was only about I think we had 4 that were on one side, 4 cabins or 4 Quonset huts that were on one side, including the food.
But it wasn't moving away like
it moves very slow.
It
It moves pretty slow. It's just walking speed generally. It's about as fast as it ever goes. But one's sliding straight to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And where it crosses, it's piling up ice and stuff. And we knocked off that after we got the things loose. And while it's moving, we just drug them right across from one to the other where it was together. And then there were other places where it opened up, beginning and open up. And
so you were dragging with a road grader or something?
Yeah.
Drag the huts across.
Right.
Yeah. You weren't driving the road grader across the crack. And
we drove, and then there were later on when it pretty well had stopped, but we had a crack that we had to go over.
Mm-hmm.
They laid down some 8x8s, and we pulled some across on that, the final ones.
Mm.
And then after we got them across, it started moving again. But we had everything over on one side, so then we started
to move it away from the crack.
Right, and then we had to reestablish a new runway.
And so did that end up becoming a pressure ridge where that crack was then again, or maybe not?
Yeah, well, what happened was it eventually. Oh, there's one other thing. Our oil supply, our barrels of oil, about half of those drifted off because after a while that crack began to go apart.
Mm.
And we thought, how are we going to get that? We didn't have a boat. We didn't have any way of getting it. And we thought, well, that's just lost. But we had enough to last us for quite a while, and it was becoming summer anyhow. And so we decided to just let it go. Well, and about 2 weeks later, it began